Hey guys, it's Fumaya. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. Either way, you are welcome. So in honor of Easter, I decided to come on and do a dedicated video on my personal testimony and how I came back to the church after spending years separated from it. And I have touched on this a little bit in my video titled Christianity is Not a Religion, but I've never done a dedicated post, so I wanted to come on and share that with you all today. Even though I grew up here, my family spent a good portion of my childhood in Nigerian Church, and the culture at that church was very socially conservative, but also super political. And even though I was little, I picked up on a lot of that. I also felt like the community and the culture was very, very, very gender biased. And I hated this because I felt like it made women sort of have to put on a face. It didn't allow women to be honest about what they were going through or what they were walking through, because they were always held to a much higher standard than the men. So for example, women were always berated about what they wear and how they dress so that you don't excite or tempt the men. That was so frustrating for me because it was like, the Bible I'm reading, are the men not reading the same Bible? And I'll never forget, one of the most ridiculous things was when a man in the church, like a Christian man, stood up and said, oh, women should stop complaining. When you marry a man, be prepared to share him so long as he maintains your position as the wife. You should be grateful, you should be content. And I was just looking at him like, uncle, yeah, talking like this in the church. Then at the Evangelical Church, the all-white Evangelical Church that we transferred to, things were a little different. So we were literally the only Black family at this church of 1,000+ members. And I feel like they loved us and they embraced us the best of their ability, but there was a fair amount of intolerance. People would say things like, oh, you're the only Black person allowed at my house. It was just like, where can I go to escape things like racism or sexism if I can't even go to the church? So I went off to college, and if you asked me, I would still say I was Christian, but it was more similar to the way that I'm Black or that I'm a woman or that I'm Nigerian or an immigrant. It wasn't something that was personal to me. It was more something that I was born into and sort of wore as another demographic that I check off. I kind of just did my own thing, joined a sorority, was super heavy involved in the Greek scene at school. At the same time, I had this short list: no drugs, no fornication, no this, no that. And that was my short list of things that's okay, this is forbidden territory. No matter how crazy I get, I'm going to stay away from these things. And I did that. It's funny because even then, even when I was sort of backslid, I never doubted that God was real. I feel like I just had too much church for that. But I didn't know anything about him besides what I had been told in church, besides the stories that I had heard growing up. I'd heard about his attributes and everything, but I just didn't feel like I had any evidence of that in my real life. And I didn't feel like the Christians that I had grown up around exemplified what Christ professed. I didn't feel like the Christians I had grown up seeing exemplified Christ. And so it just kind of left me very disillusioned with the faith. Because of that gap, I felt like, okay, I've got my short list of things that I'm not going to do. And honestly, deep down, I felt like, God, you should be happy with that. I see how my friends live. I see what my peers do. I could be out here living crazy. I could be out here wild doing me, but I'm not. I have these boundaries, and so that should be enough. And that was sort of my attitude. And I remember I would come home every so often, and my mom would always pull me aside and she would say, have you been going to church? And I would just say no. Do you know where the church is? No, I don't. What's the student groups on campus? I don't know. Every time I said no, she would start to talk to me about God. And I'd kind of get annoyed and I'd say, Mom, I'm a Christian. You don't have to witness to me. It's totally fine. And she would say, you're a Christian. Okay, very good. But do you have a relationship with God? I was like, it's the same thing. What do you why are you worrying me with this thing? Then, senior year, God interrupted my routine. In the blink of an eye, I had walked into a storm that threatened to upend my entire universe. I remember when I got the news, it was on the phone. I'll never forget it. It's like it was yesterday. I ran upstairs. I fell to my knees, literally. And I hadn't prayed in so long. Like, I didn't even know how to start or what to say. And I just started sobbing. But I remember I just picked up my Bible. I just opened it, and the first verse that came was Psalm 116, verse 1 to 2. I remember I began to weep, this time tears of joy, and I began to thank God. And it was crazy. It was humbling. It wasn't this huge revival moment. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't lightning. Like, it wasn't fireworks. It wasn't fanfare. It was just me in a room with nobody else, feeling so alone, feeling like no one else could see me, feeling like I had no one to turn to, feeling like I had no one to talk to. And God met me right where I was. It's not until after that encounter I had with God in my room that I realized, okay, this is what my mother had been asking me over and over again. Do you have a relationship with God? And I saw that God is good. I saw that He is kind. I saw that even though He is all powerful, He is compassionate. He is a comforter. That has been my reference point. That encounter has been the point that I look back to and say, no, God is with me. God has been with me, and He will continue to be with me no matter what happens. Does that mean that I'm perfect now? Far from. I have seasons where I'm on fire, dwelling in God's presence, everyday devotion, everyday praise and worship. I feel like I'm hearing from God on the regular. I feel like we're so in sync. Then I have seasons where, I've fallen off. I'm not in my devotional as consistently. It feels like I'm always making mistakes. I have seasons where I trust Him totally and completely. And I also have seasons where I'm looking around at my life and I'm like, oh no, Jesus, this is not what we discussed. But as I grow, as I mature, those off seasons become fewer and further between, to the point where I am now, where instead of having an off couple months, an off couple weeks, an off couple days, now I'll have like an off several hours, an off hour here, an off moment there. But the more and more you grow, the fewer and further between those off seasons are, and the shorter they become, because you have enough in you to know, to look back and say, you know what? No, God, this is me and you. I want your presence. I want your leadership. I want your guidance. I want you. And so if there's anything I can say I have come away with through my faith journey and my personal testimony, it is that even when I am faithless, God is faithful, and He always, always, always meets me exactly where I am.